All right, let's dive right in. Today, we're cracking the code on one of the most important parts of any project, quality. Now, it's a word we all throw around, but really mastering it is so much more than just catching mistakes at the finish line. We're going to be using the PMBOK guide to walk through the planned quality management process, giving you a real blueprint for building success right into your projects from the get-go.
So let me just start with this question. What really happens when good enough just isn't? You know the feeling, you're in the middle of a project, the pressure's on, and it's so easy to think, let's just cut this one corner to save some time. But the truth is, the fallout from not meeting your quality standards is almost always way worse and way more expensive than any time you thought you were saving.
Because, you see, poor quality isn't just a single problem. It's like a domino effect. It starts with one little error that forces you into costly rework, which totally throws your schedule and your budget off the rails. Right away, your project risk just skyrockets. And when your team is constantly putting out these preventable fires, morale just tanks, and you start losing good people. And all of that, of course, hits your profits directly. Even if you manage to ship the thing, you're now dealing with huge risks after the fact, like a trashed reputation or a flood of warranty claims. It is a truly vicious cycle. Now, before we get into the plan, we have got to get this right. The PMBOK guide is super clear about this. Quality and grade are not the same thing. Think about it like this. You've got two smartphones. One is a basic, low-grade phone that just makes calls. The other is a premium, high-grade phone with a professional camera and a super-fast processor. See? Different grades, but if that basic phone makes perfect calls every single time, it's a high-quality product. And if that fancy premium phone is constantly dropping calls, well, that's a low-quality product. So here's the key takeaway. A low-grade product can be a perfectly fine business decision, but low quality is always a problem.
So here's our game plan for today. We've just touched on the high cost of neglect. Next, we'll lay out the actual blueprint for getting quality right. We'll start by gathering our key intel, the inputs. Then we'll look at the specific tools you need to shape your strategy. And finally, we'll cover how to create actionable outputs that will steer your project to a successful finish.
That whole domino effect of failure we just walked through, that is precisely why planning for quality proactively is completely non-negotiable.
And this quote from the source material really just says it all. This is the core philosophy of modern quality management. It is so much cheaper and way more effective to design quality into what you're building from day one than it is to try and find and fix all the problems later. You see, inspection is reactive. Prevention is proactive. And everything we're about to cover is built on that one powerful idea. Okay, so if prevention is the name of the game, how do we do it systematically? Well, this is where the PMBOK guide gives us the blueprint. It's a formal process called Plan Quality Management. Let's break that down, because it sounds a little academic. Identifying quality requirements and standards, that just means figuring out exactly what done right looks like before you even begin. And documenting how the project will demonstrate compliance, that's you creating a concrete step-by-step game plan to prove you hit those targets. This isn't just wishful thinking, it's an engineering exercise. And to understand this process, we're going to use the PMBOK guide's brilliant framework: inputs, tools and techniques, and outputs, or ITTO for short. Just think of it as a super logical sequence. What information do I need? Those are your inputs. How am I going to process that information? That's your tools. And what's the actual plan I create from all this? Well, those are your outputs. It's a simple, structured, and honestly, a perfectly messy way to think about planning. All right, step one in our framework is all about the inputs. I mean, you can't just create a quality plan in a vacuum, right? You need to gather all the essential project intel first. It's like understanding the terrain before you even think about drawing the map. So, as you can see, there are a bunch of key documents that feed into your quality plan. And while they're all important, I want to do a quick deep dive on two of them that are the absolute bedrock of your entire plan.
First up, the scope baseline. This is critical because it contains the acceptance criteria, the exact non-negotiable conditions a deliverable has to meet to be considered complete and correct. Your quality plan has to map directly to every single one of those criteria. Second, the stakeholder engagement plan, because at the end of the day, quality is really defined by your stakeholders' expectations. This plan tells you who they are and what they actually care about. Without it, you're basically just guessing what quality means to the very people you're building this for.
Okay, so our intelligence has been gathered, we've got our inputs, now we can move on to the next phase, applying the right tools. This is the how-to part of the equation, where we use specific techniques to turn all that raw information into a solid quality plan.
And one of the most powerful tools in your kit is actually a financial one. It's called the cost of quality. Now, this isn't just one number. It's more like a strategic balancing act. You've got the cost of conformance. That's the money you invest up front to get things right. Think of these as the good costs. Then you have the cost of non-conformance. That's the money you're forced to spend later because things went wrong. These are the bad costs. A really great quality plan finds that sweet spot where you're investing just enough in conformance to absolutely crush the cost of non-conformance.
Let's make this more concrete. Conformance costs break down into prevention, things like training your team or documenting processes, and appraisal, which is the cost of checking your work, like testing and inspections. Non-conformance costs, those are internal failures, mistakes you catch yourself, like rework, and the one you really want to avoid, external failures. These are the defects your customer finds, and that leads to warranty work, liabilities, and the biggest cost of all, lost business.
Another fantastic tool is benchmarking. The logic here is just plain common sense. Why reinvent the wheel? Benchmarking is just a structured way of looking at similar projects, either in your own company or out in the industry, to learn from what they did right and what they did wrong. It's a great shortcut to proven methods and helps you set realistic targets for your own team.
And finally, you need to be able to visualize your process. Now, the guide lists a few tools here, but I want to focus on flowcharts. A flowchart is so much more than a diagram, it's a diagnostic tool. When you map out every single step and decision in a process, you can literally see the weak spots. You can pinpoint exactly where a defect is most likely to happen, and then you can strategically build in a quality check right there at that vulnerable point.
So, we've gathered our inputs, we've applied our tools. What do we actually produce? What do we walk away with? Well, this is the final step in the ITTO framework, crafting the actionable outputs. These are the real, tangible plans that will guide your project team.
The main output is no surprise, the Quality Management Plan. This document becomes the single source of truth for all things quality on your project. It's the official rulebook. It lays out the exact standards you'll follow, your measurable objectives, who's responsible for what, which items need a quality review, and the specific activities you're going to perform.
The second critical output is quality metrics. And this is so important because there's an old saying that's absolutely true. If you can't measure it, you can't manage it. Metrics are what turn fuzzy goals, like we want a high-performance system, into something concrete and verifiable that you can actually track.
So, for example, instead of just saying the code needs to be good, you create a metric like fewer than 5 critical errors found per 1,000 lines of code. Instead of a vague goal like the system needs to be reliable, you measure it, less than 30 minutes of total downtime per month. These specific metrics give your team a crystal clear target to shoot for, and there's no ambiguity about whether you hit it or not.
And this brings us right back to the core financial argument for all this planning. The cost of quality trade-off visually says it all. That relatively small upfront investment in prevention and appraisal, your cost of conformance, is so much smaller than the massive, painful reactive cost of failure, your cost of nonconformance.
So if you only take away a few things today, let it be these. First, quality is not a final inspection step. It's a strategic decision you make on day one. Second, planning for quality upfront is always cheaper than fixing messes later. Third, your quality management plan is your roadmap. Use it. And finally, if you don't have clear metrics, your quality goals are just wishes. Make them real.
So, I'll leave you with this one last thing to think about for your own projects. After going through this whole structured approach, ask yourself, is your quality plan a living, breathing blueprint that your team actually uses to make decisions every day? Or is it just a document you made to check a box, now collecting dust in a folder somewhere? The answer to that question really does make all the difference.